Okay, let's talk now about your GPA, explain a little bit about it, and show you how you can calculate your own today. GPA, of course, stands for grade point average. So this is a numerical average of all the grades you've ever earned in high school, and it's on a 4.0 scale. You can have anywhere from a 0 to a 4. Again, this is all of your final grades you've earned. So these are all semester grades, as you should recall from the transcript we just looked at. So your official high school GPA takes into account all of your final semester grades that you've earned throughout high school. So why is your GPA important? Well, for starters, it's a single number that represents pretty much how well you're doing in school. And it qualifies you for a lot of different opportunities in high school and beyond. Couple that I wanted to point out, graduation, you must have at least a 2.0 GPA in order to graduate from West Seattle High School. That equates to roughly a C average. So if you don't have a 2.0 GPA by the end of your senior year, you cannot graduate. If you find yourself in that situation, you can petition the district to let you graduate, but it's a pretty difficult process. You have to write a petition, you have to get letters of recommendation. Don't let yourself be in that situation the end of your senior year. Start strong now, build a high GPA, and graduate without any worries. Another reason we're talking about GPA today is because as freshmen, you guys are laying the groundwork for the rest of high school. So although it doesn't seem like freshman year is maybe that important in the grand scheme of things, it actually is as far as GPA is concerned, because you're setting the stage for the rest of your high school GPA. What you earn first semester freshman year is actually very important, as we'll see in a second. So graduation, even though it's 4 years away, start thinking about it now. You will need to have a 2.0 in order to graduate. Next, the West Seattle National Honor Society. In order to join National Honor Society, which you'll be eligible for as an upperclassman, you have to have at least a 3.5 overall GPA. And generally speaking, that 3.5 is what is considered an honors level GPA. That really kind of sets you apart in a different class from the rest of your peers when you're applying to college and scholarships and any other agency that might need to see your GPA. So 3.5 is a pretty good number to shoot for. You will also be eligible for NHS membership at that point. Below that, NCAA, college athletics. Any of you who are hoping to play sports in college, this is very important. The NCAA is pretty strict in terms of who they admit to their clearinghouse and will allow to play in college. There's a sliding scale with GPA and test scores. We won't get into that now, but basically the higher your GPA is as a college athlete, the less stringent you may need to be about some of the other admission requirements. So again, a good reason to get a strong GPA right off the bat, even though you won't be looking at playing in college until junior, senior year, the NCAA will be looking at your GPA. College admissions, this is an obvious one. Typically, GPA is one of two major criteria you're evaluated on, the other being test scores. Colleges will also want to see letters of recommendation, your extracurriculars, essays. Typically, you're considered holistically as an applicant. That means they look at a lot of different pieces of information. You're not just a number to them. But GPA and test scores are two of the biggest numbers that colleges look at when they are considering you for admissions. And we'll look at that in more detail in a minute as well. And money for college, obviously. GPA is huge when it comes to scholarship opportunities. It seems fairly obvious, but generally speaking, the higher your GPA, the more money you will qualify for, the more attractive a candidate you'll be for various scholarships. A lot of scholarships have a GPA minimum, as do admissions too. For example, some schools will not even look at your application unless you have at least a 3.0 GPA. Scholarship agencies won't award you any money unless you have, let's say, a 2.5. So a lot of times GPA is kind of that minimum bar that you need to hit in order to be considered for admissions and for money for college. So now that you know a little bit about GPA, let's go a little bit deeper and show you how it's actually calculated. So your letter grades in high school correspond to a number value. And these numbers right in front of you are specific to Seattle Public Schools district. So these can vary. And ultimately, colleges can calculate GPA however they want to. Some, for example, will consider any B a 3.0. They won't give you the extra 0.3 for a B+. But this is how Seattle Public Schools calculates your GPA, and this is how it will show up on your transcript and how colleges will see it in that matrix we looked at earlier. So this is what we're looking at in terms of Seattle Public Schools. And then basically to get your GPA, you total up all of the classes you're taking and your grades in those classes, divide that grade point total by the number of classes you're taking, and that, in effect, gives you your grade point average. So I'll show you an example here. Pull up my calculator. So let's say I'm a freshman and I'm taking 6 classes at West Seattle. I want to see what my current GPA is. I'm going to take a minute and find it out. So for this example, let's say I'm taking regular English. I'm currently making an A in it. So that is going to be a 4.0, as we see here. So 4 points for that A in English, plus let's say I'm also taking honors biology and I'm making a B in that. So I'm going to give myself 3 points for my B in biology, as you see here. I'm taking regular world history this year. History is not my favorite subject. I recently bombed a test. Maybe I'm not doing so hot in there. I'm currently making a C. So that, of course, would correspond to a 2. Give myself 2 points for that C in history. I'm also taking Algebra 1 this year as a freshman, and I'm doing pretty well in Algebra 1. I'm enjoying math. I've got an A in there. So I'm going to give myself a 4 for my A in Algebra. The electives I'm taking this year are, right now, I'm taking personal fitness. I'm enjoying that, making an easy A. I've got my 4 for that class. And then my 6th class, let's say, is Chinese 1. And I'm doing okay in Chinese. I'm holding a B in that class. So I'm going to give myself 3 points for that B. So I'm going to add up all of those points for all 6 of those classes. That gives me 20. And then as you see here below, I'm going to divide this number by the number of classes I'm currently taking. So the 20 grade points divided by 6 classes gives me a GPA of 3.3. So as you see, if you look at the chart, that's a pretty solid B+ GPA. So again, you kind of want to shoot for anywhere in the 3s is pretty good. 3.5 kind of puts you into that honors category. In this example, what's probably hurting my GPA is that C I have. That's bringing me down. But I've got a couple A's that balance it out, bringing me to that average of 3.3. So now you have an idea of how GPA is calculated. It's pretty easy and fairly straightforward. Isn't really too difficult. So now we're going to take a second and look at some average GPAs of various universities. So for this example, I chose universities that are pretty popular for West Seattle high school grads. This gives you an idea of what most graduating seniors have when they're applying to these schools for admission. So the average freshman class at the University of Washington is coming in with a 3.78. That rounds up to obviously 3.8. That's a pretty high GPA. That's a pretty competitive school. University of Oregon, 3.6. We've got Seattle U coming in at 3.58. Western Washington, their average GPA for their accepted applicants is a 3.4. Central Washington, 3.4 GPA actually gets you automatic acceptance. So that's pretty cool, and you will find that at certain universities. if you graduate high school with a minimum GPA, they will let you in regardless of your SAT, ACT scores. So that's pretty cool for those of you who might struggle down the road with testing. This is kind of cool feature that some of these schools offer. So Central's a 3.4. Of course, they'll admit you with below that, but you might have to show some more impressive test scores. But that's their minimum GPA for automatic acceptance. And then Eastern Washington, their average GPA of their freshman class is about a 3.2, so a little bit lower on the 3 scale. So that gives you an idea of some average GPAs for admission for some local college, some colleges and universities that a lot of our graduates attend. So why don't we take a couple minutes and try calculating your own GPA. What I want you to do is I want you to pull up your grades. This is the only time we will tell you to take out your phone. You can pull out your phone for a second to check the source and pull up your grades and try it for yourself. Add up all of your current grades. Give them each a GPA point value and then divide that number by 6, and that will give you your average GPA. So take a minute to do that.